It's so nice to meet you. Let's read Magic Treehouse, Fact Checker, Mummies and Pyramids. For the Jack Giraffe. Ancient Egypt. Everyday life. Ancient religion. Mummies. Ancient funerals. The age of pyramids. Tomb of treasures and tomb robbers. The most famous mummy of all. Gifts of the pyramids and mummies. Doing more research. Index. Chapter 1. Ancient Egypt. For thousands of years, mummies and pyramids were a great mystery. How were pyramids were built? What did people make on mummies? What was the strange writing on mummy cases? In the last 200 years, scientists have learned a great deal about the people who built the pyramids and made mummies. They were hardworking people who enjoyed life. They loved science and music. They believed in the sun god and cat goodness. They thought they could live forever. They were the people of ancient Egypt. Egypt is where one of the oldest civilizations in the world began. 5,000 years ago, Egyptians invented one of the first forms of writing. They made a kind of paper from reed plants. They invented a calendar much like the ones we use today. The ancient Egyptians built some of the most amazing buildings the world has ever known. Their painters and sculptors created beautiful works of art. Their doctors went to school to study how the body works. Why did such a great civilization begin in Egypt so long ago? Most historians think the answer is simple. The Nile River. The Nile River is the longest river in the world. It flows through the middle of Egypt. The Nile gave the ancient Egypt water for drinking and bathing. Egyptian fishermen caught many kinds of fish in the Nile. Hunters hunted wild birds along its banks. Boats sailed up down the Nile carried people and gods. Look at this picture. But the Nile's greatest gift to the Egyptians wasn't fish but birds or drinking water or travel. It was mud, floods, and farming. Most of the land in Egypt is part of the Sahara Desert. The desert soil is sandy and rocky. It's not good for farming. The ancient Egyptians called the desert the Red Land. No one lived in the Red Land. Hardly anything could grow there. The land along the bank of the Nile was very different from the Red Land. The soil there was dark and soft. The Egyptians called this land the Black Land. The Black Land was some of the best farmland in the world. Why is the Black Land so good for farming? Every July, the Nile flooded its banks. The floodwater dumped a layer of black mud alongside each of the river. The black mud was very fertile. That means it was full of things that plants need to grow. In November, the flood waters ran down. Farmers plowed the black land. They planted seeds in the rich, fertile soil. In March, they harvest their crops. The harvest is almost always very plentiful. That means there was more than enough for everyone. The flooding, and the planting and the harvesting. Farm year, July flooding, November planting, March harvesting. Two kingdoms. Villages formed near the good farmland along the Nile. Some of the villages became cities. Over time, the villages and cities became part of the two separate kingdoms. For many years, each kingdom had a different king. One king ruled over the land in the north, where the Nile flows into the sea. The other king ruled over the land of south, along the Nile Valley. About 5,000 years ago, the kingdom Menes united the two kingdoms. King Menes built a capital city close to where separate kingdoms had met. He wore a special crown. It was made of the crown of both kingdoms. Most historians say the joining of the two kingdoms was the beginning of the great Egyptian nation. When King Menes put on his double crown, he started a civilization that lasted 3,000 years. Look at this picture of the King Menes. Turn the page to learn about the ancient Egyptian alphabet this way. Hieroglyphic writing. The ancient Egyptians wrote with their pictures. The picture writing is called hieroglyphic writing. The pictures were mostly of things from everyday life. Owl, look at this. This is this owl is an owl, water, a basket, but the pictures did not always stand for things to show on, like a bird or sun. Most Egyptians never learned to read hieroglyphs. There were over 700 different signs. Chapter 2 Everyday Life. Most ancient Egyptians were farmers. They lived in villages and towns in the Black Land along the Nile River. The houses were made of mud bricks. The mud from the brick was also another gift from the Nile. Even wealthy people lived in houses that were very close to each other. That's because Egyptians wanted to save most of the Black Land for farming. Egyptian houses usually had high, flat roofs. Families often did their cooking on the roof. They sometimes slept on the roof in summer. Poor families' houses usually had only one room. Wealthy Egyptians had larger houses. There are servants to do the cooking, washing, and other chores. If you could peek beneath the roof of an Egyptian house, this is what you might see. This is what you might see. Egypt has a very warm climate. Most ancient Egyptians hardly ever wore shoes. The clothing was almost white and loose-fitting. Almost all their clothes were made of linen. Linen is a cloth made of flax plants. The ancient Egyptians cared a great deal how they looked. Wealthy Egyptian men and women both wore eye makeup and wigs. They also wore necklaces, bracelets, and rings. Egyptians loves perfume. They like to rub good-smelling oils and cream on their skin. Children and family life. Egyptologists believe in ancient Egyptians loved children. Egyptian art often shows parents having fun with their sons and daughters. Yeah, young children in Egypt didn't wear any clothes at all. Egyptian children played with spinning toys and balls. Both boys and girls played with dolls and wooden animals. Children and grown-ups also played board games. These games were sort of like checkers or chess. Most children didn't go to school. They lived with their parents until they were married. Egyptian boys and girls wore their hair in style called sidelocks. Nobody knows why. Look at these here. The ancient Egyptians were some of the first people to keep animals as pets. The Egyptians loved their pets. They treated them like members of the family. One source says that when family pet's cat died, the whole family shaved off their eyebrows to show their grief. Artists and craftspeople. There were many skilled artists and craftspeople in Egypt. Sculptors and painters decorated places and temples. Potters worked with clay to make bowls, jars, and statues. Weavers wove cloth for clothes and bedding. Shipbuilders built sailboats and barges for traveling up and down the Nile. Art craftspeople made leather, goods, and jewelry. Ancient craftspeople, sculptors and painters, potters, weavers, shipbuilders, leather workers, jewelry makers. Egyptian craftspeople were very skilled at their trades. They usually worked together in large workshops like this. Scripts. One of the most important jobs in an ancient Egyptian was that of scribe. Scribe wrote on scrolls. These scrolls were made from reed called papyrus. Scribe keep records from the government. They also keep records from merchants and traders. They copied down magic spells and scientific information. It took years of schooling to become a scribe. A hieroglyphic alphabet was very hard to learn. Most Egyptians never learned at all. They hired scribes to read and write for them. Pharaohs. The rulers of Egypt lived very differently from ordinary people. They had hundreds of servants. Their homes were grand palaces. Egyptian rulers became to be called pharaohs. Pharaohs had total power over their people. Ancient Egyptians believed that pharaohs controlled the weather. the flooding of Nile and the growth of their crops. Egyptians thought their pharaoh was more than a person. They worshipped him as a god. Jack and the Annie presents the ancient of animals of ancient Egypt. Crocodiles, hippos, and beautiful birds live along the Nile River. Lions, wild bulls, and jackals also lived in ancient Egypt. Egypt's statues and jewelry were often made to look like the animals. This glass fish held perfume. This wooden goose sat on wooden eggs. This lion guarded a jar of face cream. And this hippo was a good luck charm. Chapter 3, Egyptian Religion. Ancient Egyptians worshipped their pharaoh. They also worshipped many gods and goddesses. Egyptians pictured their gods and goddesses in several different ways. A few were like ordinary men and women. Some were like animals. Many were half human and half animal. And Egyptians believed in the gods and goddesses watched over everything they did. And this is a picture of Egyptian queen with falcon-headed god Horus. Temples. The Egyptians built great temples for the most important gods and goddesses. Inside the temples were scarred statues. Priests at temples cared for the statues. They washed and dressed them. They even served them meals. Ordinary people were not allowed to see the sacred statues inside the temples. When they visited, they said prayers and left gifts outside. At home, they prayed to their own statues of their favorite gods and goddesses. The next life. An important part of Egyptian religion was a belief in the next life. The next life where people went after they died. They could enjoy many of the same things they had enjoyed on earth. Egyptians believed that every person was made up of three parts. The first part was the body. The second part was the ka. The ka was the person's life force. It was what made the person alive. The third part was the ba. The ba was what made a person different from anyone else. Egyptians believed that when a person died, a ba and the ka left the body. For the person to live in the next life, the ba and the ka had to come together again. Egyptians often showed the ba as a bird with a human head, like this. The body was home for the ba and the ka, so it was very important that the body of a dead person could not be destroyed. To keep the body from being destroyed, the ancient Egyptians turned it into a mummy. Turn the page to learn more about the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt. This way. Gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians worshipped many gods and goddesses. Here are some of the most important ones. Ra. Ra was the sun god. He was sometimes shown his body of a man and head of a falcon. The Egyptians believed Ra created the world. They thought Ra sailed across the sky every day in a golden boat. At sunset, Ra sailed his boat to the underworld. The underworld was a kingdom beneath the earth. At sunrise, Ra rose from the underworld and sailed his boat across the sky again. This is the picture of Ra. His boat. Horus and Isis. Egyptians believed that long ago Osiris and Isis had been the first king and queen of Egypt. When Osiris was murdered by his elder brother, Isis used magic powers to bring him back to life. Osiris became god of the death and ruler of the underworld. Isis became the goddess of healing, marriage, and motherhood. Horus. Horus was the son of Isis and Osiris. He was a falcon-headed god. Egyptians believed that Pharaoh was Horus in human form. Bastet. Bastet was Ra's daughter. She was a cat goddess. She was shown as a cat or a woman with a cat's head. Egyptians believed Bastet had the sun power to make their crops grow. They prayed to Bastet for a good harvest every year. Bastet was also the goddess of music and dance and the goddess of joy and love. Thoth. Thoth was the moon god. Egyptians believed Thoth gave them the gift of writing. He was also the god of medicine and mathematics. He was sometimes shown as a baboon. He was also shown as a man with the head of a bird. Bes. Bes was one of the Egyptian favorite gods. He was short, chubby, and heavy. He had lion ears and tail and the body of face in a human man. He bears brought joy and good luck for families. He protected the whole household. Chapter 4 Mummies. Normally, when an animal or person dies, nobody begins to decay. That means that the skin, hair, muscles of the outer part of the body start to rot away. Finally, there is nothing left of bones. My mummy is a dead body that has been protected from the decay. Look at the nested mummy cases. The first Egyptian mummies. The first Egyptian mummies were probably made by accident. The ancient Egyptians needed the land near the Nile for farming, so they buried the dead in the nearby desert. The hot desert sand dried out the bodies very quickly. They didn't decay. They became mummies. The Egyptians studied the desert mummies. They learned from them how to protect the body from the next life. Making a mummy. It took a long time to make a mummy. The work was done by a team of priests. Egyptians believed the god Anubis watched over mummy making. Anubis has the body of a man and the head of a jackal, so that the chief priest wore a mask of a jackal. A place where the priests worked called a beautiful house. Everything in the beautiful house was done with great care. First, all the organs except the heart were taken out of the body. The ancient Egyptians believed that the gods would weigh a person's heart when he or she tried to enter the next life. The weight of the heart could tell the gods if the person had lived a good life on earth. The other organs could put special jars to bury with the mummy. Next, the priests washed the body with wine. They said prayers. They rubbed the body with oil and spices. Then the priests covered the body with a kind of salt called natron. Natron worked like desert sand, only better. It helped dry the body even more quickly and keep it from decaying. Finally, the priests laid the body on the sandless table. They said more prayers. Then they left the body to dry for 40 days. When the body has dried out, it was wrapped in strips of linen. The linen had been soaked in resin. As they dried, the linen strips became very hard. The priests wrapped magic charms in the mummy's linen strips. The Egyptians believed these charms would bring good luck and protect the person in the next life. The priests wrapped and grabbed until the body was covered from head to toe. Sometimes a mask of a person's face was placed over linen strips. This would help to help the bat and the cat recognize the person underneath. When the body was fully wrapped, it was ready to be placed as its mummy case. It was usually a painting of a person's face on the mummy case too. Many mummy cases were decorated with paintings and writings. The paintings often showed the person entering the next life and meeting the gods. The writings spelled out prayers and magic spells. Early mummy cases were rectangular boxes like this one. When later mummy cases were shaped more like mummies inside. When mummy was sealed inside the case, it was ready to take into its tomb. Amulets. The magic charms wrapped in the mummy's linen strips are called amulets. Some amulets were little statues of gods. Others symbols like a set of stairs leading to the next life. Many amulets were shaped of a beetle called a scarab. The Egyptians believed that each day at dawn a giant scarab pushed the sun into the sky. Sacred amulets were a symbol of rebirth and next life. They often have wings. The other popular amulet is called the Eye of Horus. The Egyptians believed that god Horus lost his eyes in a fight with his evil uncle. It was magically put back by the god Thoth. The Egyptians thought the eyes of Horus painted in mummy cases would allow mummies to see outside. Chapter 5 Egyptian Funerals. This is a picture. Egyptian funerals were big events. They were meant to send the dead person safely into the next life. On the day of mummy was taken to his tomb, were meant to send the dead person safely into the next life. The day of the mummy was taken to his tomb, family and friends formed a funeral procession. The funeral procession was sort of like a parade. The procession started as a dead person's home. It would include family members, friends, visitors, and servants. It was important to have lots of people in the funeral procession. The dead person's family sometimes paid people to welcome them and mourn the person's death. These people might not have known even the person in life, but they would scream and cry and throw dust on themselves to show their grief. If they did an especially good job of acting sad, they could be paid more. The people in funeral processions brought things they thought the dead person would need in the next life. They carried food and drinks, weapons, tools, and musical instruments. If the person being buried was a child, they might even bring toys. The funeral procession first went to a beautiful house. There, with the mummy's mummy case were placed in a wooden barge. Oxen dragged the barge across the desert to the place where the mummy was being buried. As the procession crossed the sand, splashes of prayers and recited magic spells. The ancient Egyptians believed it was important that everything be done right, or the person would never get to the next life. When the procession arrived at the tomb, there was a special ceremony. It was called the opening of the mouth, the price of the prayer, when he touched the mummy's mouth. Egyptians believed the opening of the mouth ceremony made it possible for the dead person to eat, drink, and speak in the next life. Finally, the mummy was ready to lay in his tomb. Turn the page to learn about the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead. Ancient Egyptians believed they would have to travel through the underworld to get the next life. This journey was very dangerous. To help them make the journey safely, mummies were buried with prayers, magic spells, and maps around the world. These prayers, spells, and maps were called the Book of Dead. The Book of Dead wasn't really a book. Its spells and maps were written on drawn paper and scrolls. The Egyptians believed if the dead person followed the direction in the Book of Dead and passed all the tests of the gods, he would live happily forever in the next life. Oh, but that's all I'm going to read you today. I'm going to read you chapter 6 and more tomorrow. Bye!